Telecommunications Commission, Thursday, September 26, 2024, full commission meeting. We are at the City of Cottage Grove Council Chambers. This interim executive director, can we get a roll call, please?
I'll handle roll tonight.
Or Lonnie?
Delegate that
She's
to Lonnie.
delegating already, so I get the roll. Commissioner Polta? Here. Commissioner Ingerman? Here. Commissioner Walchuk?
Here.
Commissioner Thiede?
Here.
Commissioner Bloom?
Here.
Commissioner Date?
Here.
Commissioner James? Here. Patrick Downs is not here. Commissioner Olson?
Here.
Also, interim executive director Ann Schweisguth and myself, Lonnie Gerlin, are in attendance.
Okay, great. So when we have a quorum,
We do.
but on public comment. It's a presentation, so close public comment. Going on to approval of the agenda. Any discussion?
Move the agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Agenda passes. Move on to consent agenda. Any discussion?
Nope, I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. Move on to presentations. We're going to start with Mr. McNamara from WOLD.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm excited to be here tonight to chat with you a little bit about our progress on the space design for the new office space that's going to be in Woodbury at the, correct me if I'm wrong, the community center? Is that, I always forget the exact name of it, but.
Central Park.
Central Park, thank you. And where we are at right now is we are mostly through the early schematic design phase. We would enjoy kind of giving an update on the design solution. So the presentation tonight really kind of focuses on that early schematic design, which we're really looking at the 3,700 square feet of shelled space that's part of that project that is intended to be the new office space for the offices for the staff in that area there. And so one of the things that we spent some time on is we've met multiple times with Ann and her staff to kind of go through what do we want to get out of this project, and really kind of working towards a schematic design that Krause Anderson can put an estimate together so we can really understand where we're at with the solution. So what I wanted to walk you through tonight is the schematic design solution that we've come up with for that space. And so we had a program that identified the number of offices that we wanted to have in that area to meet the needs of the department for today and into the future. And we've also identified some growth areas in there that will help them out into the future. We also wanted to create a studio space in there that would update the spaces that they currently have, provide adequate storage in that area, and then modernize the control room that oversees that space. We looked at a couple of layouts of that area and really landed upon having an entry to the south there near where that stair is, that we could come into a nice an open break room commons area that would serve as kind of the front entry to the office space. There'll be a podcast room right off of that area that will open up into that area. So we're planning on some movable doors in there so you can slide those open, not unlike, the current podcast room that's off of the lobby in the current, offices here in town. And then we're going to take advantage of that southerly exposure with our offices along that south wall, and then some additional storage space in there. So pretty straightforward as to where we're at now. I think this meets the programmatic needs that were laid out in the proposal and has approval of the team. And so kind of the next steps for us is to continue on with the design process. We're going to be working with Krause Anderson to do a cost estimate, because we know cost and budget are important, and it was something that we had talked about during the RFP and the interview process. And so probably in the next week or so, we're going to be turning it over to them to do their first round of cost estimating on it. Barring any complications on that, we'll be back with that budget for the commission, and then we're going to continue on through design development, which is the next phase of design through November. And then we will move into the construction document in bidding phase as we go into early 2025. The goal of the project is to get the bids out in the spring in 2025 so that they can commence construction and target completion of that when the Central Park project is scheduled to be done, which is in that August, September timeframe next year. So currently we're on track and we look forward to the next phase of design. But with that, I would ask if there are any questions or comments or things that the commission has been thinking about as they think about the new spaces.
Can you go back to the design page?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You had-
I had questions on, I was just thinking, like, emergency exit. Just thinking that northwest office, that shared office, you're back along this long hallway. The person or people back there getting out, there is an exit to the north, but right now there is no way to get through that because there's an IT room and that won't be an exit door because we're splitting that room. So really, anyone there would have to go all the way down the hallway out front and then out. So was that considered at all as far as safety design?
It is something that is still being looked at.
Okay.
Because that did come up.
Okay.
But obviously, we don't want to get stuck there.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like even if you put a doorway into the studio on that backside, that would at least allow easier access, quicker access than going all the way down that hallway, so.
Yeah,
okay.
and that might be where we end up going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've already considered that? No.
I just had one question. Is it going to be an issue or problem having the studio or the radio broadcast having an exterior wall that faces like outside or into the hallway or into the stairwell? Is there going to be like a noise or any kind of issue with having that exterior wall out facing?
For which space are we? The
studio.
For the studio, and then there's the
Yeah.
radio podcast space.
You gotta remember that this hallway's not gonna have a lot of traffic, and we'll do some soundproofing for both these rooms.
Yeah, we have some control over what we do on the inside of those spaces and can certainly add some acoustical materials in
Well,
both of those.
there'll be
areas.
some acoustic tiles and
Yeah.
stuff that goes in there. Good questions, though.
Right. That green area you show, is that like for a receptionist to sit in too? Is that what that is?
There is no receptionist as part of the staffing for this, so we wanted it to be in an area where somebody could come in and not just be standing in a hallway, kind of like what they do right now, coming in, and it would have good sight lines to the offices in that area, so as somebody comes in, it'll be obvious that there's somebody in that area.
It's kind of meant to be a multi-purpose space. When we toured a lot of other facilities, you walk in and they have kind of a creative multi-purpose space where people could either be working, taking their lunch break, having a little meeting. So that's kind of what it's meant to be.
Maybe you could put an intern out there, let them do some stuff, so.
So that's kind of what I was going to ask. Obviously you probably don't use the conference room that much in the existing anymore, right? Is that, you're kind of using that for some other things or?
It's kind of a multi-purpose, the one we have now, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we used to have meetings in the, cable commission offices and so forth, at least the executive deal. So are you intending to do that in that green space or being able to have almost like a little conference type of thing in that?
Probably a smaller conference would occur there. Our studio is a nice big space, so we would probably have some tables that would come out, some chairs to do a larger meeting. There's also a lot of conference space in the facility at Central Park. So if we wanted to do our executive meetings at Central Park, we could reserve a room there.
Okay, that's true. All right.
I had a couple questions about all of the offices. And I don't know how to ask this the most articulate way, but I feel like some businesses are moving away from individual offices. Do you feel like the nature of the work you do requires that everyone has their own office?
This was a big, long discussion for us, and we talked through it with the staff several times because we did have those conversations. Should we have more open feel? And everybody was very adamant that they did not want that. Because your offices double as your edit suite and where you do sound and all of those other things, people felt really strong that they wanted to be able to shut a door and do their work.
And then it looks like you have the space for 8, potentially 10 people. Is that, are you full, or do you have extra offices?
That's extra offices. Right now, we're at 7.
Okay,
The additional offices would probably be used for storage
okay.
or interns until they would might be needed for future staff down the road.
My other comment about the green entry area, I get that we're working with limited space, but I had hoped that as part of this, we would have something that's a little bit more visitor-friendly, and maybe there aren't very many visitors that come to the space anyway, but like if I'm gonna be really nitpicky, I open the door and there's a sink right there. I just hope that through the design, there is some kind of like, welcome space, welcome area. Like, to me, it seems kind of odd if you were coming to SWCTC offices and someone was eating their lunch in the space that you go right into the entryway for. Obviously, with the limited space, I'm not sure how you solve that, but I'm just offering that perspective. The other thing that's outside of this design space that I just wanted to check in on, could you go, I think it was the slide right before this, okay, so the bathrooms, is that like a shared sink sort of situation? So you have like 4 toilet stalls and 2 shared sinks?
That's what I understand from the design drawings that were shared with us.
So I know that's outside your space, but I feel like if I was at my job all day, I would want a little more privacy than that. And I feel like that is maybe less than ideal. And so I wonder if that, and also, who else is using the space? The senior adult programming? I don't know if, like, that setup works. So I will bring that forward to Clint, because it's not necessarily your space, but I think that if that's something you guys hadn't thought about and think that it would be nice, you should also probably bring it forward to them. If I'm bringing up like a totally null point and y'all don't care about having a little like put my makeup on in privacy kind of thing, or, then never mind.
John, are those shared? I thought they were individual.
There's one, yeah.
Yeah, so there is one
Restrooms.
in that area that has a toilet and a sink in it, that very first one. The other 3 are just toilet stalls, and so I can imagine what the intent is this is just a gender-neutral restroom area that has the provisions from some handicap accessibility in there with the provisions for one, private bathroom, but the rest, hand washing and that type of stuff would be at a common sink area, if I'm interpreting this drawing correctly.
Yeah, that's certainly what it looks like, but when I think of what an all-inclusive bathroom space might look like and the amount of space it's taking up, I feel like 4 stalls with sinks in them and 4 gender-neutral bathrooms might fit better for the needs of people who are there working all day and for senior and other types of variety of people who would be using that space. And again, I know it's outside of this space, but
Andrea, as long as you're bringing that up, what's always bothered me on these new bathrooms that are coming up, they ain't putting urinals in them. Well, you know what happens. You feel sorry for the people that have to use the toilet when the men get done in there. Really, it's true. Everybody knows that. I'm sure they ran into it. You might want to bring that up, Andrea,
it's a great point because I brought up, hey, I might want to do my makeup in private. I haven't noticed a lack of urinals, but appreciate that you pointed it out.
It ain't really a place not to go. It's the mess, it's the mess a lot of the boys make on the toilet.
We are happy to help out with that in any way we can.
Any other questions?
I agree with Andrea on that green space there where you walk in. It's, to me, you're running a business, and she said it, I was going to bring it up. You walk in and somebody's eating lunch or whatever in there. It's kind of, to me, that seems kind of hokey. Kind of eat your lunch somewhere where the people ain't coming in off the street, you know?
That's why the offices have doors. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I guess like maybe there is still time to reconsider where you put the radio podcast room, because if the radio podcast room was shifted over a little, could you have like a little entry spot and then like a little break area? I mean, I'm not trying to like say you have to do it that way. I'm just expressing that it doesn't seem like there's any sort of like welcoming space.
Could you take that shared office and put a little kitchen back there? Just get it out of the front completely? Or is that a taken office?
It's not a taken office. You're all bringing up great points, and some of them we haven't thought about yet. So I think talking those through with the design team is probably a good idea.
Yep, that's why we're here
Yeah.
tonight. So we're not quite done with schematic design, so this is the best time to influence the design solution. We have some follow-up meetings with the team, and we can certainly discuss that more. And as we go into the final phases of schematic design, we can certainly bring back kind of the final thoughts related to that.
So if there's offices that are not used, I guess is it possible maybe you wouldn't put up a wall, like let's say if you had two office spaces next to each other that weren't designated? I guess what would be the feasibility of maybe not putting that wall in immediately, or delaying putting a wall in until, now we need to separate this space, because then it just gives you a larger space for, again, the conference, the meeting, the lunch. I mean, and again, I have no idea about the logistics or the practicality of that. I mean, maybe it's like, no, the wall needs to go in, it's got to go in right now. It can't wait till later. I don't know, but,
Yeah.
and again, I don't know what the cost would be of delaying that particular piece, or what, but I mean, if we're just looking for space and there's open offices, maybe by combining a couple of them for now, until you absolutely need them as offices, maybe that's something possible.
And to tag on to what Andrea had said about the makeup thing, you may want to think of some kind of a space in here that's a green room. People that are on camera, even males, do put on makeup, so you probably would want something adjacent to the studio for that.
One thing to keep in mind with separating offices and thinking about the future, it's far more expensive to do it later than it is to do it now. Just because you have HVAC you have to change windows, there's all kinds of things that have to be changed if it's not thought of ahead of time. So we actually have that issue over here where we wanted to put a wall up and our facilities went timeout. There's a lot of things that have to happen for that to work, so something to think about, so.
Yeah, you end up with fire alarms and electrical and IT stuff.
All kinds of stuff, yep.
I mean, you want to do it all up front. I just take a look at your storage down there, you got storage cabinets, and in that green space, it looks like, I don't know what that's supposed to be along the outside wall, whatever that is. But I would think there'd be some way to shift stuff around to get a lunch break room, whatever you want to call it, down by the shared office storage cabinet area. There's got to be a way to work that around better than what you got.
Well, we'll keep looking at it. I think when I go back to how we looked at other facilities, and they were all creative spaces, places that were doing things like that we were doing. And we'd see those, you'd walk in and that's what it would be. It would be a big shared space that people were either working in or taking a break in. It kind of created a synergy in the office. So you'd walk in and people were there, not just, necessarily eating a sandwich. So we like the versatility of that because our space is, there's only so much we can do in the space. So that's where we were coming from, but I think we need to think through it a little bit more and make sure it's the way we want to go.
What is that supposed to be along the outside wall? Them four little, whatever you want to call them? That just a desk and chairs or what?
Just an idea around some flexible seating and stuff like that you could use in multiple ways in that area. So again, the whole idea of that space is to have very little that's fixed in that area so that you can make it into as flexible a space as you want to.
And that's a large window then?
Correct. Yep.
Well, maybe it'd work better if you had the sink and that stuff on the outside wall too. Get it out of right when you come through the door and you're looking at that.
Well, and we do have the park right there, so if you're looking for break room, I mean, I know people don't necessarily want to be out of the office sometimes, but the whole park is there, right? So if people want to step away and have lunch, they can go to the park, right?
I think there are some, we're still working on that through the lease.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell you that we're able to walk wherever we want and
Oh, okay.
take up space.
Okay, I
but-
assumed we could.
Yeah.
All great feedback, and we can take on the challenge of some of those with the limited amount of space that we have, and so we just want to make sure we're maximizing the flexibility of all of the areas, so.
One other question I just thought of, is there an opportunity for us to get additional storage, other places in the building? Obviously, we'd have to pay for it, but if we need, I'm thinking there's building storage here, if we could rent one of these rooms, if we find out we need more room.
Storage is something that we've definitely been talking about. The actual where all the storage will be placed comes in the next phase.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot of storage in the office that you're not seeing yet. We do have a cage down by the dock that a lot of our gear is going to be stored, which is going to be very helpful. And yeah, there's, our IT stuff is going to be in the IT room. So we definitely open up to have more space than what we currently have.
This is a good starting point, and you guys bring up great points, things we haven't thought of, so it's great to get your input. So it's a work in progress. It's fun.
So our final piece tonight is we're going to continue to layer in the detail of what we've been talking about. We are still doing some verification, as was alluded to, on all the equipment and the furniture that we're going to need to bring along, and get some more input from the team there. And then we have some MEP stuff that will kind of finish out the schematic design phase. And like I said, I believe we're scheduled to come back in a month with kind of our final estimate and final schematic design presentation. So we'll take all of the feedback that we received tonight, and certainly can answer a lot of those questions at our next presentation.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up on presentations, Harrington, Langer and Associates, Anna Anderson. Thanks, John.
All right, good evening. Again, I'm Anna Anderson from Harrington, Langer and Associates. Our firm provided the audit and performed that on the December 31st, 2023 financial statements, and I'm here to present the results tonight. On page 1, we have our independent auditor's report. This report spans pages 1 through 3. The first section is the audit opinion. Our firm issued a clean audit opinion, meaning the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects and in accordance with accounting principles. The second section here details management's responsibility for the financial statements. The third part talks about the auditor's responsibilities for the financial statements. The next section talks about the required supplementary information. And then the fifth section talks about the report on internal controls and the details and the scope of our testing. So I'm going to scroll ahead to page 4, which is the management's discussion and analysis. This is where I'm going to spend the bulk of the time this evening. This report is going to provide an overview of the key financial information as well as the operations of the commission. We're going to review the basic financial statements. The financial statements are prepared using proprietary fund accounting, which is the same basis of accounting as a private sector. Revenue is recorded when earned and expenses are recorded when incurred. The bottom half of the page here provides descriptions of the different reports that are presented. The first one is the statement of net position. This shows the assets and the liabilities of the commission. The second is the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. This shows the operating revenues and expenses of the organization. And then the third report is the statement of cash flows. On the top of page 5, we have the financial highlights. As of December 31st, 2023, the commission had a net position of $3,190,243, of which almost $2.2 million was represented the amount invested in capital assets, and $1.4 million was designated for capital equipment replacement. The commission's net position decreased $222,000 from the prior year, and the decrease in net position is attributable to the funds returned to the member cities and also a decrease in PEG fees. The chart at the bottom of the page is a condensed comparative summary of the commission's net position. We have the assets of the organization. Total assets decreased about $529,000 from the prior year. Deferred outflows of the organization that's related to the pension plan. Next is the liabilities. This had about a $443,000 decrease from the prior year, mainly some timing differences of payments and also a change in the pension liability. Then we have the deferred inflows. And lastly, that net position. Again, the total net position of the organization decreased about $222,000. And again, that's from the return of the member cities, the franchise funds. Overall, the commission has a very strong net position and significant liquid assets. Next is the changes in net position. This shows the program revenues and your general revenues. Total revenues were $1,694,000. This is a decrease of about $51,000 from the prior year. Total expenses of the organization, $1,916,000. And again, the revenues minus expenses brings you to that change in net position. At the bottom of the page, it talks about the major sources of revenue. These are the same as prior years. Your main sources of revenue are your franchise fees and PEG fees. And the major expenses of the commission continue to be wages, benefits, occupancy, and franchise fee reimbursements. On the top of page 7, capital assets. The commission's capital assets at December 31st amounted to $2,185,000. And during the year, you acquired approximately $267,000 of new equipment and leasehold improvements. When we compare the actual results to the budget, revenue was about $36,800 higher than expected due to interest income, and expenses were about $170,000 over budget, again, due to those franchise fee reimbursements. Now we will take a quick look at the full financial statements, which start on page 8. This year, since we've had the lease standard in place for 2 full years, we're able to show comparative totals to the prior year. Again, total assets, middle of the page, $3.8 million. Total liabilities, towards the bottom, $635,000. And total net position of $3,190,000. On page 9 is that statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in that position. You can see the breakout of the revenues, as well as the major operating expenses of the organization. And again, due to the member city franchise fee reimbursements of $222,000, we have an operating loss. But then we add in the interest income and some other income items, leading us to that decrease of $222,000. One calculation we would like to look at is to see how much it takes to operate the organization on a monthly basis. It costs, if we remove the franchise fee reimbursements, it costs about $141,000 a month to operate. And if we back that into the unrestricted reserves that you have about 7 months of unrestricted reserves, which is a really healthy position. The next report is the statement of cash flows. This provides information on the $423,000 decrease in cash and investments. Again, $208,000 of that is from operations, and $267,000 is from acquisition of those capital assets and improvements. Now we're going to look at the footnotes that are on page 11. The footnotes provide details to the financial statement readers. Note 1 describes the commission and its policies. It also contains definitions and required language. So I'm going to scroll ahead to page 14. And note 2, at the bottom of the page. The deposits and investments. All of the funds were fully insured as required by state statutes as of the end of the year. Note 3 in the middle of page 15, capital assets. There's a table here that shows the changes in capital assets. There were some disposals, there weren't any disposals during the year. It was mainly just those additions and then the accumulated depreciation. And then on top of page 16, note 4, defined benefit pension plans. This is a really long footnote. We're going to skip a lot of the details here. This just describes the para plan and that it provides retirement, disability, and death benefits for eligible employees. All of the costs of the plan are actuarially determined and measured as of a date of June 30th of 23, which is how we come up with the deferred inflows and outflows. The commission's contributions to the plan for the year ended December 31st were $44,515. Again, we're going to skip ahead through a lot of this. On to page 21, note 5, the borrowing arrangements. The commission has a credit card account in which you can borrow or charge up to $54,000. And at the end of the year, there were outstanding purchases of about $2,200 on the card, and those were included in accounts payable. Note 6 talks about the board designated unrestricted net position, and that was the $1.4 million that are designated for future capital equipment replacement. Note 7, franchise fee reimbursements. The table shows the amounts that were returned to the member cities. Note 8 are your commitments. This is related to the building lease. And that spans onto the next page as well. And then the table here shows your current commitments and the payments that are to be made per your current lease for the next few years. And then the last item I want to point out is a subsequent event. After year end, there's pending litigation involving a former employee. An insurance claim has been filed. And it is currently believed that any future potential exposure by the commission will also be covered by insurance. So now I'm going to skip past a lot of this other supplementary information, and we're going to look at page 28, the internal control report. This report talks about how we consider internal controls as a basis for designing our audit procedures. However, our audit does not provide an opinion on the effectiveness of those controls. During our audit, we found the same 2 internal control deficiencies as the prior years. We found no other instances of non-compliance during our testing of sampled items. And the schedule of findings is going to be on page 30. The first one here, similar to prior years, we have that lack of segregation of duties. This is very common to organizations of your size due to the limited number of office personnel. And what that really means is you might not be able to detect any, or prevent or detect any errors or irregularities. So we recommend that the board continue to provide oversight and review financial statements and information on a regular basis. And through our discussions during the audit with Ann and Lonnie, there are some new policies as well that are being put in place for 2024 that are also going to help mitigate some of those risks that you have. The second finding is about the financial reporting process. Like many similarly sized organizations, the commission has hired us to take the data or your information and put it in this required format. And we're just required to disclose that to you. The next document we're going to look at is the management letter, which I don't think we have on this slide, but that's okay. I'll just talk about it. The management letter is a required communication to management, just in regard to our audit. It talks about any significant audit matters that were found. There were no new accounting policies adopted during the year. And also all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. In this letter, it also talks about the estimates used by, when making those para calculations. And then it also talks about how we had no other difficulties encountered in performing our audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements, and any adjustments that were presented are all standard closing entries. There were no non-standard adjustments. We didn't have any disagreements with management, and we also had no other audit issues or findings during the course of our audit. So this concludes my presentation on the annual audit. I want to thank Ann and Lonnie for their assistance. The transition in management was really smooth. They were able to provide all the documentation requested on a very timely basis for us, and everything went pretty well. Do you have any questions for me on the audit?
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Great, all right, thank you.
Moving down to reports. Staff report. Who gets it?
Chair Bloom, Commission Directors. I have a couple things to report on tonight. One, you probably are aware it is election season. We had 20 candidates come into our studio to record a 2.5-minute profile video, which is great. That's a lot of the candidates came in, and we've had really great feedback that people appreciate the service. It's hard to get information about local candidates, so we feel like it's really important that we provide videos like this. We also aired and streamed 8 candidate forums with the League of Women Voters and the Chamber. We did one today, which was our last one, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. And all of those can be found at our website at swctc.org/election, as well as on cable channel 859, which is the high def channel.
It's the height of, yep.
Then I wanted to talk about the Digital Equity Competitive Grant. So Mr. Bradley's been talking about this for a couple of meetings, that there was going to be some grant money available. And when we went to NATOA, we learned more about it. There was a very tight window to apply for this grant. We're talking billions of dollars that are available. NATOA put together a group of cities and community media centers across the country to do one grant together, which seemed like our best avenue because it wasn't going to cost us anything to apply for this. So we did apply as part of that group, along with 20 plus other partners. The total ask was for a little under $12 million. Our ask was for $522,000. If we're awarded that money, and we won't know if we get awarded that money until, they say winter, I've heard April, so it's gonna be a while. That money could go towards building our new studio and our radio station, which would be a great help. Would also go towards doing some programming in Hmong and Spanish, which are the number 2 and number 3 languages spoken. So we'd hire a producer and a host to do those series, which would be kind of neat, I think. It also would allow us to do some community engagement, providing digital equity classes, and it would assist the city of Woodbury in completing a language access plan. So I had about 2 weeks to pull that together. And I don't know, I'm pretty happy with what we're kind of requesting. So we'll keep you up to date on where that goes. Like I said, we learned a lot about that at the NATOA conference that Lonnie and I attended in South Carolina at the end of August. And Lonnie's going to report about that experience.
That was my first one, so it was interesting to see how other people do the same thing we do on really small budgets. It was interesting. Bradley did talk he talks about all these things. So, but it was interesting because cable isn't dead. You know, it still generates a lot of revenue that's out there. You know, the broadband is definitely a question that is on everybody's mind. And with Minnesota being kind of the forefront of trying to get legislation, you know, that was talked about quite a bit. It was a good networking tool. We got to talk with a lot of different people across the country and how they're doing it. And it was fascinating to me how involved in the community these other organizations are. They're doing things that are just with arts and music and diversity groups, really encouraging and get some good ideas. And then our very own Ann was a speaker at NOTOA this year. She talked about the Lego video. And, you know, it was a big hit. Everybody's walking around the whole conference with their little Lego pieces they handed out. So it was kind of fun to see. So it was, overall for me, I think it was a positive experience. So I'd like to probably go again.
Yeah, and MACTA was named the chapter of the year. So we got an award, and our group kind of put it on the table at every luncheon.
Yeah, it was kind of in your face. That was good.
So that was great to see. SWCTC, we won 4 awards.
Awards, yeah.
And we were also just nominated for 2 regional Emmys. So
Awesome.
that's great.
Great staff, great crew.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to talk about High Vision?
Oh, sorry. Just a couple updates on some projects. We did update 3 rooms at Public Works in Woodbury, Carver, Colby, Powers. I always have hard trouble with that one. We actually took out some equipment and replaced it with the new Barco bars. We did the same thing here in Cottage Grove, updated 2 conference rooms. And then we purchased a new device that will allow us to go live just about anywhere that we're throughout the cities. It's called a Hayvision Air 320. It's a model number. It means nothing to you, I know, but to us tech geeks, it's kind of cool. Basically, you can hook a camera up to it, hit play, and it sends it through modems. It will send it back to our office where we have a stream hub that will distribute it to our channel and multiple social media. So you can do Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can do them all pretty much at the same time, which is really handy. We've actually used it at Gray Cloud and did a Gray Cloud meeting live, which is the second time we've done that. So it's pretty interesting to see Gray Cloud. And it actually helps me because I don't have to go back the next day and edit the meeting from the previous night because we record it on digital media. This was live. It went to YouTube. It was closed captioned on our channel. It was a great benefit, really. So it's nice to be able to do those kind of things. So we're hoping to use it a little bit more on some other live events. So as we get more fluent with it and it gets to become a common thing, I think you'll see it more.
That's all we have.
That's all I have.
So Lonnie, like the Memorial Day event where you have to.
Yeah,
we've
so
got-
where we do the bridge, yeah, this should replace that.
It'll replace that.
So, you know, I go down these rabbit holes with my ideas, and so one of the ideas was to take the camera, say to Gray Cloud, and send it back to our office where we could actually put graphics on it, and then send it out to the channel or do those kinds of things. So, yeah, and I hate to step ahead with the sports thing. I know we've talked about it in the past, but you could use this in that scenario where you could take one camera, say, just to start with, and send it back to the office and add the graphics back at the office instead of having a whole production crew at the site. So there's some opportunities to do things like that maybe. So that's down the road, but it's just a way we could use that tool. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Moving on to legal, Mr. Badley could not be here tonight in person, so that's in your packet if you need to look at the legal reports. So we'll move on to unfinished business. First one, I have a statement from Mr. Badley on the report on July 25th, 2024 closed session, which was a consultation with counsel on an active and threatened and pending litigation. The statement regarding it, the closed session at the end of our last regular, excuse me, I put my old man glasses on. At the end of our last regular commission meeting, we went into closed session based on the attorney-client privilege to consult with our attorney about pending litigation. We received information from our attorney and gave guidance to our attorney. So, that's it. From that, we'll move on. Executive Director Employment Agreement. At one of our last meetings, the commission voted to allow me to go into discussions with Ms. Swayze-Guth about an employment agreement for Executive Director. That has been completed, and we negotiated, and she accepted, and it's all been signed, and welcome aboard as our new executive. I believe that takes effect
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, right? Yeah.
So
So,
today's the last day as interim,
Okay.
so.
live it up.
Yep.
Moving on, rebranding update. Ann?
Rebranding. Okay, so here's where we've gone. A lot of discussion. As you all know, we had our August 22nd workshop meeting, which I think went really great. I thought it was really interesting to see how Hugh Life facilitated that, and I loved all the input that everybody gave. At the end of that workshop, it was overwhelmingly chosen for True Lens. Almost everybody in the room voted for that. So that was really great to see. We landed on 3 top names: True Lens Media, Glacial Valley Media, and 5 Points Media. So after that workshop, Mango Day completed search engine optimization, which is just making sure that whatever name you pick is going to show up on that first page of Google. It's going to be easy for people to spell, not too complicated. Doesn't have a lot of other things out there. You could get a domain in social media without much problem. So they did run all 3 names through that. True Lens Media actually came out as the number 1 that they would recommend, that they felt that that was going to be the best one to move forward with. And since everybody was on board with that, that was good to hear. We hired attorney Brad Walls to conduct the trademark work. He did find some registrations that were similar to True Lens out there, in particular a photographer in Minneapolis and a video production place in California, both kind of on the smaller side. So he did suggest that we should maybe think about adding another word to that name to make sure that we differentiate it in the market so we could avoid some trademark issues. So staff got together, thought long and hard about this. We've had a lot of discussion at the board and the staff level of what do you put on your name so people know who you are. And so it just makes a whole lot of logical sense to go with True Lens Community Media, because that is who we are. We're here in the community, we're the community media facility. I like it. So we are looking for any more feedback or comments you'd like to give tonight, but staff is recommending that we move forward with True Lens Community Media and move that into the logo design phase.
Questions, discussion?
I like it.
Me too. So, I guess we're looking for a motion to approve what Ann said.
So move.
I'll second.
Can I just ask one question? When we left that night, I know the media versus a studio was kind of thrown out. What did you guys land with the studio versus media?
It landed back in media as a recommendation by Mango, that that would be the better direction to go. And we kind of agree. And then once you put community into it, media makes a whole lot more sense because across the country, we are referred to as a community media center.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
that's kind of where we landed on that.
okay. Thanks.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And you're good to go to logo.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Moving on, new business, 2025 budget draft, version 1.
Today is a lot of numbers, I gotta say. Okay, so this is your first look at the 2025 budget version 1. There'll be lots of opportunity to give input on this. I did meet with Chair Wilczek who is the treasurer of the commission, on September 10th. She gave some great feedback and ideas and asked good questions about the budget. Tonight, you'll be seeing the first draft, and then we'll have a second draft at the executive meeting in October, and we'll be looking for final approval in December. So I'll just go through a few parts of this, and feel free to stop me and ask me any questions that you'd like. Income, our franchise fee, we've been seeing a trend of about a 5% decrease. So it just makes a lot of sense to budget a 5% decrease in franchise fees for 2025. The good news is the PEG fee went way up. So that was exciting to see. In February of 2024, we had the franchise renewed. We went from $1 per subscriber to 2%. So we've seen significant increases there. So that is, dollar-wise, it's about $225,000, which is going to be very helpful, especially with some of the initiatives we have coming up. Going into the expenses, in 2024, the payroll was calculated for 8 employees. We had only about 6 to 7 employees this year because we were down a producer for the first quarter, and then we obviously did not have an executive director in that position. So we're going to see some pretty substantial savings in payroll for 2024. In 2025, I've calculated to potentially add an additional full-time community engagement marketing position. That's something that's been floated and talked about, so I thought it makes sense to put it in the budget, just in case we want to follow through with that. Category 7440, contributions. We've increased that to $5,000 to make a contribution to MACTA for the legislative efforts at the Capitol. We feel like that's an important thing to participate in. 7481, and I'd love some more input on this line. It's promotional, and we've increased that significantly to promote the rebrand next year. So there's a lot of items we'll need to purchase, a new tent, apparel, wrap the van, things like that. So, and obviously we want to be at a lot more events and get that new brand and logo and name out there. Category 7620, pro services. You'll see a decrease in 2025. 2024, that was really for the rebranding consultation, which was $60,000. So that's why you're going to see that decrease. And 7830 rent is because we had a rent increase for extending the lease that we're in now. Did anybody have any questions up until this point?
Does the payroll expenses include a COLA increase at all?
Yes.
It does, okay.
I had questions on the furniture and fixtures and equipment.
Yep,
Am I jumping to?
you're jumping a little. but
Okay,
That's
maybe I
okay.
had these printed in the wrong order then, so, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Relocation fund, as you know, we put in $237,898 at the beginning of this year in the relocation fund. We do anticipate additional money to be added to that in early 2025. Capital investments, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So next year, we are anticipating $164,000 for the commission office. That would help move our control room and studio to the Central Park facility, bring in Comcast fiber, take care of our lighting grid in the studio, and get the LPFM radio station up and going, and potentially put in some new studio lighting. Cottage Grove is looking at a low-zone water treatment plant, equipment, and also Kingston Park building. St. Paul Park, Newport, and Gray Cloud have recently had upgrades, so we don't anticipate any big expenses there, but we always want to make sure we have some money to do maintenance or anything that they might require. And then Woodbury is at $225,000. Most of that is going to the Central Park facility as a whole. That's a pretty expensive project that will be paid through multiple years for them. And then to do engineering for the public safety expansion building. So a total furniture, fixtures, and equipment of $500,000 next year. And that's my report on the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any comments that you'd like to give now, or email or call me later, that's great as well.
My comment was going to be just for this year, I mean, we're significantly underspent in those. So is there stuff in the pipeline that we still have coming, or?
Are you referring to,
So the mid-year for 2024, you know, for fixtures, furniture, and equipment, you know, we're well under our budget.
there's some things that have come in since mid-year.
Okay.
And at the October, I'll update it to probably the end of September, so you
Okay.
can see those. We're hoping that 100,000 out of that Woodbury is going for that first installment for the Central Park facility.
Okay,
That's my goal, is to get the projects that we already have in the pipeline completed and still have the 100,000 left to carry that over for the Central Park.
right, okay. And even in the commission office, you're like, you know, well under there, 130,000 versus 5,000.
Oh, we spent some money.
Oh, yeah, we spent,
Yeah.
since this, we
Right.
spent.
The Hay Vision hadn't come out yet and some other
And I had
items,
to
so.
purchase a new UPS for the rack system.
Okay,
It
all right.
failed,
We'll
so.
we'll likely still be under on that, and
Yeah.
that's good for us, because that can.
Well, I
go
wondered
towards
if you were
our-
holding off on any spend because, you know, you're moving, so you're not.
We're being very conscious of what we're spending. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're trying to save as much as we can for that move.
Right. Yeah, because then for 2025, will you need commission office furniture, you know, for the space that we're talking about? Are you looking at that as a 2020, when you move in? You know,
Most
'cause
of our furniture is coming with us.
Is it?
Probably the multi-purpose space and some meeting tables we'll need to purchase.
The radio station will be a big purchase.
Yeah, the radio station will be a big purse. Some of that can float to 2026.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, you know, some figuring out there. If we happen to get that grant,
would
that's
help.
gonna be a big help,
Yeah, that'd be huge.
so.
Okay.
I'm not sure that Kingston Building is going to happen next year, but
Okay,
That sounds like it might be 26.
okay. And we can always move the capital projects as needed.
Just, we know they're in the pipeline, so they kind of get added to a running document that we have.
just made some adjustments to kind of reduce the price, but I think it's
Okay,
probably a year.
we're here to help.
Then I also noticed conference, 7630 and 7640, seminars, conferences, and then staff development. For this year, you're kind of light on that, so our staff, you know, have they gone, like, is your conference that you went to, is that included in this number or not?
That is not totally included in that number. Some of it is.
Okay,
This year, we always offer those opportunities, and this year, people
have not.
just had family obligations and things
Okay.
that they, you know, wanted to do. But yeah, we still like that amount for people to get
No,
that
and I'm not
education for sure.
suggesting, but it's like, are we encouraging staff?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Absolutely, yeah. There's some things I'd like Brian, our RT specialist, to go to. And so there's some things down the line that he's gonna, partake in, so.
Okay.
And I want to go to NAB for to look at the radio station items that we might need, so.
Okay.
How many people do you budget to go to Natoa from staff?
Generally, our rule of thumb has been that staff can go to one out-of-state conference.
Okay.
And so whatever one they pick and that's approved, then, so there isn't a set number for NATOA.
Thanks. I don't think you're looking for any action except for comments, right?
Correct.
Moving on, we need to select a November, December meeting date. Man,
Yeah, typically, due to November and December holidays, the commission has traditionally held the final regular commission meeting of the year in early December. So we are recommending that Thursday, December 12th at 7 PM may be a good date, but just wanted to ask if that worked for everybody.
Is that replacing the November meeting or an addition?
It replaces the November and December and becomes the final meeting of the year.
Council night, Tom?
That's what I'm looking.
December 12th?
I have that on the
No,
calendar
December
already.
5th.
December
Council.
12th.
Okay.
I said, it's already on
12
the
is,
calendar.
12 is okay.
For the 12th?
Yeah.
Great. So that's a good day. I think we do have to vote to officially,
Yeah,
Move it to that date.
yeah.
to set the date.
looking for a motion, unless there's more discussion, to move the meeting to December 12th.
Thursday, right?
It's a
I'll make the
Thursday.
motion.
I'll second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
And it's moved.
Thank you.
November. Moving on to commission's comments and requests. I'll start with one, as we get towards that December timeframe for that meeting, we need to get a nomination committee together again for the executive positions and stuff. So anyone that is interested in being on the nominating committee, or if you're interested in a position on it, please let our executive director, Ann, know, and she'll coordinate that committee. So.
Can you remind us of what the positions that are at their term limit?
Yep, so the term limit, so chair is it's a 2-year, and you can only have it twice in a row, I think, if I remember right. So the chair position is up. Vice chair is also up. So you've been in it for 4 years.
Have I?
Are you? Yeah, I think. 2
years.
2 years. 2 years, 2 years, so it's up, yep, 2 years.
It's not 4 years.
Not 4 years, yeah, it's 2 years.
out, but it's up. Okay.
Right. Secretary is also
Yeah, this is my
up
second
for it, and treasurer is not, because you just started
So
it.
3 out of the 4.
3 out of the 4.
Okay.
So if you're interested in any of those positions, let Ann know. So that's all I got. Anyone else? We'll move on to adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.